Hey, what's up, y'all? This is your boy Tilo Mad coming at you with another video, and I'm here with a guest today. We got Ken, so say what's up, Ken.
Hello, hello. It's great to be here. I think this is a really cool idea that Tilo has. Well, he'll introduce it. As fellow content creator lovers, I think it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, no, definitely. And when I was thinking about this, I definitely thought of you as the number one person to do this with because, like me, we definitely check out a lot of other content creators.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, for me at least, I do a lot because of Grand Arena Science, the website/tool. Initially, when I started to take Grand Arena more seriously, sort of like after it was introduced, a few months after it was introduced, one of the things that I had a hard time finding was just videos. I'm a great copier, I'll be very honest, like see what somebody else does well using the GG stats or videos. So I started making a little database of videos from different content creators, and in the end I decided to make a tool and got some people to help me out. And now there's thousands and thousands of videos, like little short particular combat ones that you can search, and so I end up watching a lot of content creators.
No, I'm right there with you, and I'm the same way. If I like something that they do, I'm gonna put that into my own game and my own GAC action. And if you guys haven't checked it out, definitely go check out the website and also your YouTube. I know your main focus is the website, but that end of the season wrap ups that you do are really, really important. I like them a lot.
Thanks, appreciate it. Yeah, they're for me. That's just like a fun thing to do. I don't have people in my personal life that I can talk with about Grand Arena, so why not record it on the internet for for other people who enjoy it to listen and give feedback and stuff.
Nice. But all right, let's get into this video. So this video is going to be really interesting. I've had this idea for, I want to say, a couple months now. Just talking a little bit about lightsaber styles. In Star Wars, lightsaber styles are super important and really determine a fight. And almost the same thing is required in GAC with content creators. We're going to do specifically. And how do you feel about that, Ken? How do you feel about lightsaber fire? I cannot talk today. Lightsaber
styles. Yeah, it's interesting actually. To be honest, when we started chatting about this, I personally really enjoy Star Wars, and I've been, I don't know, whether it's from Star Wars Legos or different Star Wars computer games over the years, I've always enjoyed those. But I definitely am not like, I don't have the lore knowledge and background that you do. But I think conceptually it's a fascinating idea because in general, the different styles, the 7 main ones, and then the 8th one that's, depending on how you look at the lore, I guess that's a whole other style to itself. They definitely follow to some extent how different content creators play their Grand Arenas. So it's curious to try and compare them one to the other and see, sort of broadly which buckets each of these content creators we think falls into. And I think it's very interesting too, while we were chatting about it, we actually agreed on like 95% of the, before talking even, we agreed on like 95% of the split of which content creators fell into which style. So I'm really curious, the viewers, what they end up thinking about in terms of our analysis, and because I think it definitely sort of outlines how each of these people choose to play GAC.
Yeah, and that's the main thing we're going to be doing. We're going to be talking about, if I want to definitely see in the comments, what style do you guys think you guys are? And also it gives you an idea, maybe who do you want to watch to kind of imitate their style or just build upon your own style. So this is going to be really fun. I think it's going to be fun.
I think so too.
But all right, let's get into this one then. Let's talk about our first lightsaber form. So the first one is going to be SheCho. SheCho. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
All right. So SheCho is going to be our first lightsaber form. A couple notable lightsaber users of this form is obviously going to be Kit Fisto, like you guys are seeing on the screen right now. but we also have a couple of these ones that Ken kind of brought up to ETH Koth. So ETH Koth is another one of the users in this one. This form in particular is the style that most lightsaber users, aka Jedi, even Sith, learn from the basics. And even though it's a basic form, more focused on offense, if you master it, for instance, like Kiss Visto, it can be very, very effective because you really are in there trying to main your opponent and disarm them, so that way you can get the win. How'd you feel about this form?
Yeah, I think you've outlined it really well. And an interesting part too, from a lore perspective, I did some research, is that this style is actually the earliest lightsaber style that was sort of formalized, because as you mentioned, they use it to teach the new Jedi and Sith as they're starting out. And it actually was created before lightsaber weapons were even a thing. So that's why the style is a bit less complicated, because they didn't have lightsabers when this form was sort of standardized. So that's why it's more focused on the disarming your opponent and beating them via technique that lightsabers are sort of added to later on. So yeah, I found it quite interesting, the background of it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then when it comes to GAC and play style, we kind of determined this one would be more of an offensive focused GAC play style. Yes, there's defense involved, but offense is the main emphasis on this one. We also had a couple content creators that kind of fell under this umbrella, and this is actually one of the forms that had the heaviest amount of players that fell under this one. So I'm going to list you the name of content creators that we kind of put into this category. This is going to be Darth Loquitter, Heathen, Cubs Fan Han, AP Games, Nev, Celiac Sarah, Kate Gaming, Slug Mug, Dr. Zeppers, Ricky P, Rambam, and Ranger J. So we got a big list right there, but this is one of those forms that it seems to be really popular in the GAC environment that we play in.
Yeah, and I think one thing too, especially on the content creator side of things, I think one of the reasons why in content creation this is popular is because it's relatively less time consuming, I want to say. So for content creators that are doing this just in the evening, or they have a few spare hours a day or during GAC to do this, I think obviously the content creation part takes some time. So this part requires, like, you don't have to be an expert strategizer or have 10 hours to look at your opponent's mods and plan some little very technical counter. So I think this is one of the reasons why we have, I think of all the styles, this is the most players in them. And I tend to think of, because it's relatively straightforward, it's not a downside at all. It's for people without a lot of time or without a lot of desire to dig into the little GAC details. This is a very, very good form for those.
Yeah, time investment, and also even with the time investment, this form is really, really just about messing up your other opponent in simple ways. Nothing too flashy, nothing too crazy, but you can get the job done. And also very adaptable as well. The one thing it does struggle against is probably other lightsaber wielders. So maybe other really invested players, but at the same time, if they have a blaster or anything like that, you're probably going to be able to get through them. And it's the same thing with GAC. If their opponent is just doing basic stuff, they're definitely going to get through them. And even the higher end too, they can definitely take out, say, a bounty hunter or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we move on to the second style here. So here we go with form number 2, Makashi. So this is an interesting form. This actually started from a lore perspective when the Jedi and Sith started to fight each other. So they needed to have a form after Form 1 that was focused actually on lightsabers. So this form was created with the idea of fighting somebody else with lightsaber combat. And so as part of that, also because they were assuming they were fighting somebody with force powers, parts of the form, in style at least, have to do with fighting without your lightsaber, like it's taken away or force pulled or whatever the case may be. So the form tends to be very, very elegant, I guess you could say, very efficient, making the most out of every movement. And again, trying to fight other players who are sort of, you think of from a GAC perspective, trying to fight other players who are either in Form 1, which they shouldn't really stand that much of a chance to you, or they're looking to fight other players that are equally skilled, I guess. Very efficient players, essentially, is how we try to look at this. From perspective of different Jedi that used it, obviously Count Dooku, as we see on screen here. Ki-Adi-Mundi was also a user of the Makashi form. He had a few different forms that he used, but Makashi was one of the ones. And then also, although in game she's not really a Jedi, that's a whole different topic. Asajj Ventress was also a user of this form, and I guess she still does in her Night Sister form. That's how she uses it. Player-wise, we put 5 players in this category. Calvin Awesome, Solo Base 15, Skeltrix, Brill Council, and Senator Frodo. So, yeah, go for it, Tilo.
No, I was gonna say I completely agree with those assessment of those players. These players are just efficiency players to the extreme, but at the same point, they are built to take out other GAC players. For instance, say Calvin, my co-host for the Mad Awesome Show. The guy's a monster. He had over 100 game winning streak for a long time before the GAC changes. Same thing can be said about all these participants. Really, really effective players, know their roster, and you mentioned it. If their lightsaber is taken out or something happens to that really disarms them, they're able to adapt. And the same thing with these guys. They're able to adapt as well as have the efficiency banners to have that behind them.
Yeah, the adaptable part I think is very important, because all of these players, especially just from a GAC perspective, as we moved to this new format the last few months, it's a big change. From, especially, I think most of these players, what's notable is all of them are not new players, they're like 6, 7, 8 million GP, but still they're playing in the top of Kyber 1 against a lot of players with 9, 10, 11 million GP. So you have to be very adaptable and flexible to compare and figure out some way to beat those players with a wider roster or better mods or something like that. So cool. That's number 2. Back to you for number 3.
All right, so for number 3, we have one of my favorite lightsaber forms, and this is going to be, let me pull it up, Sarisu. So Sarisu is a really, really cool lightsaber form, just because this is the defensive lightsaber form beyond any other form of the 7 that we're going to cover, and including the little bonus one that we're going to cover as well. But this is going to be extreme defense, and as you guys know, the main master of this form is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan Kenobi is one of those characters in lore that his defense really won him a lot of battles, and you can really apply this into GAC because there is some players that defense is their main focus and it allows them to get some wins. A couple other users though, before we get into those players, is going to be oh my goodness, Luminara and Barriss. These guys were also very into the form and defensive focus. One thing that I was looking up doing research before, this was almost thought to be one of the lightsaber forms that was the biggest reflection of what it meant to be a Jedi, just because it didn't have the emphasis on offense and it was more about defense and protection of oneself. So almost like the way the Jedi are supposed to do. And it's really fitting because, to be honest, Obi-Wan is one of those characters that if the Jedi were more like him, they wouldn't be in such problems. But bringing it back to
for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. But bringing it back to GAC, the content creators that we put under this category as being extremely defensive players. Number 1, we got to talk about Gom. Gom is one of those players that has an absurd amount of defense. Really can get to the point that he's kind of pulling all sorts of crazy stuff on offense to get the full clear, but it makes it for a fun time. Another player that is like that, it's going to be Sir Loki. Sir Loki is another amazing roster, great mods, and puts a lot of his good stuff onto defense, and it allows them to do a lot of funky but cool stuff on offense to get themselves the win.
Yeah, I think that's one of the thing too about Jedi in the game. Obviously, in addition to Obi-Wan Kenobi, we're including General Kenobi here because he does actually have. I think one of his skills is named Sokatsu, so it like fits perfectly with this form. But yeah, especially for content creators, I think that one interesting thing, at least I personally really enjoy watching like Good Old Maurice and Sir Loki, the defensive players. Not necessarily because I like playing defense, that's definitely not my style, but you can learn so much about how to like beat some teams with characters you would never even think. Like a lot of creativity is involved in doing well on offense when you're a defensive player. So very, very educational to watch these players play from my perspective. And lore-wise, no, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, and it's really cool too because this whole style is based on defense and allowing your opponent to kind of like figure out what you're going to do on offense. If there's an opportunity for the person to strike, aka Obi-Wan, then he's going to take that opportunity to strike. But his main focus is on defense. And I really, really think this applies especially to Gom. He basically uses what the opponent gives him, but he's going to give him that hard defense.
Yeah, it's very, very entertaining to watch. And just one other note from lore perspective here, from a like timeline perspective, this was actually created. This form was not created so much, but developed when there was a lot of blaster weapons. Like there's one Jedi going up against 2,758, B1 droids, and they needed to repel all of those blasters. So it's thematically, it's very similar. I imagine sometimes good old Maurice sitting there and his enemy is a bunch of droids and he's just trying to fight them off and find a little opening to go in and take the win.
Exactly.
Who's that? One of the most iconic users of Form 4, Ataru. So this was a development onto Form 3, big surprise, as the lightsaber wielders were more skilled, more powerful in the Force. They had more abilities, more power, really, than anything else. And this is the aggression. Ataru is otherwise known as the aggressive or the aggression form. It's been around a long time, back through the Old Republic, during the Mandalorian Wars. And this was actually one of the forms that was most used with the Sith, as opposed to the Jedi. There was a lot more Sith that were using this comparatively to the Jedi because of the aggressive nature. That did change a little bit in the Jedi as different things happened, but it was the Sith who made this most prominent. So this is in the same way that Sarisu was focused on creating a good defense and then finding a place to strike on offense. This is much more about the best defense is a good offense, and it focused all about having a very strong offense, very elaborate oftentimes. Like it was a multi-pronged attack, moving around quite a bit. It's definitely not something that's used by usually beginners in the Force or like new Jedi who are developing their power, because it takes a lot of finesse to be able to make the most of what they have. So sort of transitioning this into how it works with GAC. So this is a lot of players who scout their opponents very well, who take note of the mods or have very, very specific mod setups for even a particular mode of GAC, like if players are changing between 3v3 or 5v5, or like many players do between territory wars and GAC, and making the most out of their roster to decimate their opponents. Some Jedi who use this in the lore. Yoda, obviously, Shakti, Qui-Gon uses this as well, Ayla. And in terms of the players, Fort Mort, Bitcoin, Bit Dynasty, and Boba Fett. This is not just a place where you put players with B in their name, as odd as it seems with all those players, but all these guys definitely they make a lot with what they have, and they usually get quite far above their roster size because of their technique, their planning, scouting. So very, very interesting to watch too. Another, like most of these players, very educational to watch them.
Yeah, I completely agree with this grouping of players falling under this Ataru style. And it's like you said, that they use their mods, they use the scouting tools out there to really just shoot above their roster. And a lot of them are going against people with higher GPs than them, more GLs than them, and really still being able to be competitive, which is really good. And you see it in these players too. A lot of times they're able to call out different GLs that are probably in the back zone, and most of the time they're right because they do their homework or they have their spreadsheets like Mort and a lot of other players. Really, really solid group right here.
Definitely. All right, shall we move on to 5, the 2-part form?
All right, so let me pull up our next form. So this one is going to be a really, really elite group of players, because this is going to be Shien and Denso. So this form is a form that really got developed after Sarisu kind of took off in the Jedi Order. A lot of people liked that form a lot, but didn't like the non-offensive tools that Sarisu had. And yes, Sarisu can be offensive depending on what your opponent gives you, but it really didn't focus heavily on the offense. So this form in particular is one of those forms that really has enhanced offense and enhanced defense. So the way we kind of correlated this with GAC is people that are efficient in not only defense, but in offense, and the ability to kind of move in between depending on their matchup. And this is the great thing about the form too. It almost has like a subset. That's why it's Shien and it's also Denso. So you can really kind of pick and choose your spot depending on what matchup you're in. The different players that we put in here, this one's going to be End All Be All. And End All Be All is one of those content creators that, if you guys haven't checked out his stuff, has really, really good content on defensive end, but still can be an efficiency player on the offense end, depending on the matchup as well. Another person that falls into that category, and most everybody knows, is Zareth. Zareth is one of those players too, can throw down extreme defenses at times with 5 GLs and still manage to get the full clear. And also has the ability to kind of move in out between an efficiency play and a defensive play. And then also Silent Beast. Silent Beast, it's in his title. The guy's a beast. Really being able to get in there in top 50, I believe, right now, and able to show off his defense and offensive capabilities. So really, really elite group right here.
Absolutely. And an interesting part too, going back a little bit to the lore side of things, or how it was developed. One aspect that it was built to try and focus on, sort of a little bit like Makashi, but a much more advanced offensive version of Makashi. It was mainly aimed, or not mainly, but a big part of it was duels, because this is when the Jedi were fighting the Sith quite a lot, and it was very important for Jedi to be able to overcome their opponents. Even from a lore perspective too, there are some members of the Jedi Council, for instance, who thought this was an almost inappropriate fighting style because of how offensive it was. Even the defensive version, like with Shien, it's not so much defense, it's just using your opponent's attack against them. So lore-wise, it was interesting, and we can see a little bit, that guy on screen right there. Something bad happened to him, he maybe wasn't the best guy in the end, but there's definitely, it's very, very focused on offense. Even the defense is meant to be used to turn it around on your opponent and force choke them. Those poor little kids.
Exactly. Wow.
Not that we're saying that Endel or Zareth or Silent Beast force choke little children. We're not saying that at all.
Unless they're in their GAC pod.
That's true, then who knows? You can't blame them.
And then real quick too, just because I forgot to mention it, characters that use this one, obviously you guys see, we talked a little bit about Anakin, but also real big names in this one too. Ahsoka Tano, which is probably a couple of your guys' favorite character, and then Luke Skywalker himself followed in his father's footsteps and took up the form. So big heavy hitters right here all around, content creator wise and lore wise.
Definitely. Yeah, tough, very offensive form. And after Form 5, the Force Choking Children form. No, that's not appropriate. We have form number 6, the Neiman form. And our good friend, especially powerful in 3v3, Starkiller there is one of the prominent users of the form. This is also known as the Way of the Rancor, which I found quite cool. So this is, in addition, oddly enough, while it's known as the Way of the Rancor, it is also most commonly used by, I guess, diplomats when Jedi are acting as counselors and being sent out to interface with planetary governments or trade negotiations or something like this. It is a very practical form. It combines many elements of the other forms into this one, and it doesn't really have a signature fighting method. Like, it's not all about one big overhand sweep or something like that. And because of that, it also doesn't really have a signature weakness. So it's able to take into account whoever you're fighting, whatever the scenario is. It's a bunch of droids with blasters, some Sith, a starship, You have a lot of options on both offense and defense. And it's extremely strong. And usually you have quite a bit of force-based manipulation with it in addition to just the lightsaber. Whether you're, throwing a rock at your opponent or bringing something out of the sky, as everybody likes to see. If you're on offense, you like to see it. On defense, not the best. So it's a very balanced style. And in terms of play styles here, it's, I guess, players who have a tendency to lean a little bit more on the defensive style, but still they're taking into account very specific counters, Fennec versus Lord Vader, or I guess a classic, Jedi Knight Revan and JKL versus SLKR, sort of off meta or off tier counters to give them an edge versus other players. Some of the notable Jedi or Force users, I guess is better than saying Jedi, lightsaber users even, over the years have been obviously Starkiller. Darth Revan was actually a user of this form as well. And our favorite asthmatic droid, General Grievous, was a big user of this form, even though he technically, I don't know where the lore lies with his force powers, but I don't think he really has force powers per se.
Nope.
So, popular players. These are players, again, who tend to play defensive, but are not like good old Maurice, where they just throw everything on defense and try and figure the rest out. They use a lot of off-tier counters and try and use their creativity to give them an edge on offense. The Wolf, Gom Gaming. This is not good old Maurice Gaming. This is another player, Gom Gaming, another creator. Kiowa, the most popular creator at them all, Arnold, Darth Kimchi, Gridden, Macias, and Tassinix are all we feel like they fall into this bucket of defensive strength, but offensive creativity, I guess you could say.
Yeah, no, 100%. They definitely fall under that. All of them, and it doesn't matter what level they are. I know Darth Kimchi is probably the lowest on there, but he's doing off meta stuff, doing GG versus C at his level. That's a big thing. All the way up to Arnold, where Arnold's pushing the envelope for off metas as well. Definitely. All these characters, even the Wolf too. The Wolf is another great example. All of them, just awesome content creation when it comes to off meta stuff.
Yeah, very entertaining to watch too.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so for the next one, we have Juyo and Vapad. So this form is really cool, and like Ken brought it up, this one was called the crate form. I forget the way of the crate. So really cool. All these forms have different Star Wars animals that kind of like go with them, and this one is definitely very descriptive and aligns really good with this form because this form is actually really aggressive, and like we saw in Mandalorian season 2, the crates were aggressive too and also really powerful. And we're as looking through characters that actually use these forms, all of them are extremely powerful, extremely aggressive. Most of them are dark side. We have Darth Maul, we have Darth Sidious, we also have Savage Press, and then obviously the main man himself, Mace Windu. This form was really interesting because not only did it allow them to use their aggression, but also the thrill of the fight to really enhance their abilities in combat. The first form on most of these guys fall under it is going to be Juyo, and that's Darth Sidious, that's Maul, that's Savage Press. But then you have an offshoot of this that really kind of takes it to the next level, and that's going to be where Mace Windu falls under Vapad. And Vapad for the Jedi was an extremely dangerous form because this form really pushes their bodies and their mental space to the dark side just because you're enjoying the ability to fight and using some forms that could be pretty dangerous. There's only a couple users in lore that actually use Vapad, Mace Windu being the one person to really develop it along Sarah Bulk. And then we also have Kanan's master, Depa Balaba. But when it comes to content creators, when we were talking about this one, this is going to be the form that really just emphasize being creative to the point to where they do have points in the battle if they're off meta counter or if their counter to the GL specifically goes wrong, the whole match can go wrong. So this is people that are really entertaining, but at the same time have a lot of risk factor to their GAC. I think more for the Juyo side, we would have still plays that falls under that. Definitely a solid player, but when it comes to Vapad, and he's going to be in a category to himself because almost like good over Reese, but it's going to be Fatal. Fatal has a lot of those fights in his GACs that really come down to he has to take this out or there goes the whole match. How do you feel about this form and also these content creators?
Yeah, I think content creators, I think it's very accurate. Like the way that I look at it in terms of forum versus content creators, where you can't make mistakes. That's sort of how both of them play. Or, I mean, they can still make mistakes and win, obviously, but that's only if their opponent fails. And both of these players, I think, tend to play a very strong defense, but like their focus or what they spend a lot of time on is trying to get an offense just a certain counter just exactly right, making sure it works against what their opponent is placing. So yeah, I think it's a very good matching of form to players and very entertaining to watch. Although sort of nerve wracking sometimes because once something fails, like well, often there goes the match, and well, that sucks. But hey, it's entertaining to watch for sure. Um, and one interesting thing lore-wise about this form too is the form is actually, I think, more Vapad than Jujo, but it's a lot of the techniques and stuff are actually within the lightsaber. So more so than any of the other forms, although the eighth one we're talking about, you could argue a little bit, but more so than any of the other forms, a lot of what they're doing has to do with, well, lightning shooting from your lightsaber theoretically, or using the lightsaber to influence other objects and stuff like that. So it's interesting the way that lore-wise this form was developed and built over time. But very entertaining GAC-wise. Lots of different ways to attack, lots of different possibilities, and just finding exactly the one that will get you the win.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And the last style, well, technically it's not really a lightsaber form, but it's sort of been developed, understood, Jarkai, as a catch-all in a way. Like it was developed specifically for dual lightsaber combat. Like that's how it was built. Um, so Ahsoka Tano, as we see here, sort of like the Ahsoka Tano Fulcrum or Commander Ahsoka Tano in game. is the most famous user, but this is one of the forms that was developed just because of a few individual Jedi wanted to build something personal, you could say. So it's not a particular form that's like recognized or trained by masters to their apprentices, but more the Jedi themselves will develop this as they mature in their force powers and fighting style. So in terms of how we sort of played it in games, in play style for the game, is players who focus on like being really, really creative and coming up with some unique offensive style or defensive style, but a unique style that's just for that player, or is very specialized in one, a faction or a group of factions or something like that. So that's how we interpreted it for the content creator side. And the two content creators that we ended up putting into this category is Clash, who's back, which is nice. And I think everybody knows Clash and the Scoundrels go together like hand in glove. And then Go Cubs as well. He's very much a very creative player that finds a lot of fascinating options on his attacks. And there we go. That's all 8 and all of the content creators that we chose to. There's lots more creators, obviously, but both Teal and I like had a selection of ones that we wanted to talk about, and some were overlapped, some weren't. And here's what we ended up with.
Yeah, no, definitely, and we definitely want to know what you guys think your lightsaber form is. Definitely put a comment down, and if you guys don't agree, or even if the content creators, if you guys don't agree with that assessment, let me know what form you guys think you are, and I just think it would make for a really cool conversation, and it's always going to be fun. Now you're going to look at these guys and be like, hey, there he goes with the Ahsoka style, or there he goes with the Mace style. And a bonus question too. Where do you think you fall under, Ken?
Well, that's very interesting. I honestly didn't think so much about that. I would say more like a maybe Jarkai or even the Form One SheCho. Like I know a lot of different off tier counters, but I tend to play just a very strong, maybe not so simple, but I don't like to be creative on my offense. I'll just find something that I know will work the vast majority of the time and use that and put a clever defense that drains banners, but I'm definitely not like I don't spend a lot of time making a crazy weird defense offense thing. I just want to win with the least amount of effort possible.
Hey,
How
that
about you?
I'll get to me, but I was going to say that's all that matters. Get the win no matter what. For me, I want to say I'm like Neum. I do a lot of off meta stuff, and I try to put down a lot of GLs on defense,
Yeah.
but I'm not really sure though. Like we did the assessment with the other ones, but it just popped up to my head. I'm like, we didn't kind of assess ourselves.
Well, let's have the audience give their, well, I guess it's very difficult. I don't post any of my GAC, so no one has any clue. Um, but yeah, it's interesting to try and evaluate yourself on this as well, because
Yeah,
it's tough. It depends sort of on who you're fighting. Yeah, interesting concept. I love the idea though of trying to correlate it with all these different GAC content creators who have done a lot of GAC streams or videos or something like that. So it's interesting to look at them and or remember some of the fights that we've seen over the years, I guess, of GAC watching.
yeah,
Cool,
no, definitely.
cool concept.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. It's all about Star Wars. Lightsaber forms are important, and obviously with the game, GAC is important. So might as well blend the two. But all right,
Definitely.
that's pretty much going to do it for the video. We've been here long enough. Ken, let them know where they can find you, about the website, and whatever else you want to let them know.
GrandArenaScience.com or YouTube Grand Arena Science. I have like some opinion pieces on the GAC meta there a couple times a month. and I post quite a bit actually. I'll take some individual fights and break them down and try and explain why they work or don't work or what you need to do to win. And those are called Kyber Labs, but those are infrequent depending on what's going on. There's maybe 50 or some of them right now. But yeah, what else you should know? Enjoy GAC. I hope you don't hate 3v3.
I'm right there with you. I'm really enjoying this 3v3 season.
Me
But
too.
all right, guys.
It's fun.
Yeah, no, definitely. But all right, guys, we'll catch you on the next one, and appreciate all the love and support. And hopefully you guys like this one. All right, later.
Bye, Felicia.